Hello, 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 pubbers. Welcome to Galactic Historian Office Hours. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Let's get to the office, shall we? That song right now that was just played, for those of you guys who are listening to this live, if you're listening to this recording, the one that's playing right now, is Utho O'Reilly's latest song called See You on the Other Side. It's so good, guys. It's so good. Utho O'Reilly is a fantastic streamer. For those of you guys who are content creators who've been hit by the latest DMCA issue, I have had very little to no issues with DMCA because for about 2 years now, I've almost exclusively used Utho O'Reilly's music when I stream, especially when I'm streaming Star Citizen. And it is, he lets you, he's always had a agreement that he will never DMCA you for songs if you use his songs. And now he had it in written form, and he's actually kind of like clarified it even more. So if you want to make any kind of content, live streaming, movie or video, anything like that, using his songs, as long as you're not doing like a professional movie, he is very welcome to for you to use his songs. He's currently working on a project with Anchor, who's another Star Citizen streamer. She's a big fan of Star Wars. She's the writer of this project, and Utho is the composer for the project. So I am excited because Utho is a fantastic musician, and I'd love to. I can't wait to hear his songs for this project that they're working on together. I'm sure it'll be fantastic, as always. Welcome again, though. I just want to get that out of the way because I know a lot of people have been worried about that. If you're a content creator or if you're just a fan of Star Citizen, listen to Utho's music. It is a lot of it is inspired by Star Citizen, because that's how he started his work, was being a Star Citizen fan producer. He is amazing when it comes to this kind of stuff. Anywho, welcome again, Snick SC. Thank you so much for that subscription for 1 month. Thank you so much for that subscription there, Snick. Shots and cheers, guys, for that. Shots and cheers. Tis coming to the middle of the month, so the subscriptions on Twitch are going to go down a little bit, but it's all right. You know, if you guys want to support the stream, you can subscribe on Twitch, or you can join our Patreon on YouTube. It's all that kind of stuff is available. Pretty cool thing. So Onodine, G Kenny, Saturn, Ferric, Devil Dog. Let's see who else we got. Bitmao, Aaron C, Astro Nestro. Welcome, one of you. What's the composer's name? I could use some music for projects. His name is Utho Riley. I'll put the link to his latest song in the chat for you guys both as well. So for YouTube and for Twitch, you should see that. That's this song playing right now, Utho Riley. But follow that link. He also does professional work. So if you want to pay him to do professional work, he will work with you on that. He has his limitations. He knows what his limitations are, and he'll tell you if he can do it or not. He also did the theme song for the Jumptown Wars documentary that I have, the Requiem for Jumptown, which is just like this. It's powerful, but in its own little way. It's very good. Hey, Vengeful, how you doing, buddy? Q-Pan, how's it going? And Phantom, welcome, man. Shot at California. You're gonna work on some community as well, Bitmao. That's awesome, man. Let me know if you want me to. I can add your music into the list so that you can hear on here if you want me to. If you would like me to, or if you'd like to show me. Didn't you do 1 or 2 of them? I think I played your songs before, a couple of the songs before. Their name looks familiar, and I want to say that you had some awesome songs. There was like 1 or 2 awesome songs that I heard from you. Hey, Drew, be good. How you doing? He did the USS Vasquez theme, the Star Trek Vasquez theme. He did the Expanse Actium theme. Those are all his works. So you can't music. I can't music either. I lack the patience for it. And I've learned long ago that trying to be good at everything is a waste. Pick some things you can be good at, and then find talented people who can help you. Paul Tardy, how you doing, buddy? Why not? How's it going, buddy? You lurk as much as you like. Oh, right. So, we don't have any questions right now for the office hours quite yet. I put them up. I put some questions up there on Patreon. So if you're a Patreon supporter, you guys automatically get your questions answered, which is one of the benefits of being a Patreon. I will say a quick update. I'm working on part 3 of the Citizen's Guide to Lore, which is I still calling it Citizen's Guide to Lore, though the thumbnail and the title is going to call the Guide to Star Citizen Lore is what it's called in the title and the thumbnail. Because I find that that's just easier. People like that kind of terminology catches people a little bit more. So if you're interested in the lore of Star Citizen, that will be the 3rd part of the primer. So like, how did you get here? Where to go? And this last one is who are the leaders? Or I think it's who are the factions, or what are the factions? So this one's covering this is a little bit more in depth than your typical Star Citizen kind of lore guide. Like most of the stuff I've done has been kind of like stuff that's been game right now, or stuff that frames the game. This is framing the game, but it's a little bit more in depth with talking about the 3 major political parties of humanity, a light general idea of what the UEE's government structure is like, the Xi'an, a light overview of the Xi'an, a light overview of the Banu, and a light overview of the Vanduul. So it gives you guys basically anyone who's brand new to Star Citizen will have a very brief understanding of who these creatures are. I don't go into depth at all. I don't talk about like the Banu's. I talk about the Suli essentially. I talk about the Banu, what drives them, and what the Suli are. With the Xi'an, I talk about their emperor, their political structure, the military, and some of their like how they're like kind of sneaky. They're a little bit more. They prefer subterfuge than open conflict. And with the Vanduul, we talk a little bit about the tribal nature and how they're in constant war with humanity. Like, the very, very brief stuff. And I don't talk about the Tevarin, and I don't talk about the Krthok. Krthok, because I have no idea. There's no confirmed idea of what the Krthok actually are. And I don't talk about the Tevarin because I'm going to do a separate Tevarin video, which goes more into the depth about the Tevarin. So it'll be out for Alien Week. I didn't plan on it being out for Alien Week because I didn't know Alien Week was a thing, but it was the next thing on my list to be done, and the thing after that is the Tevarin the deep dive, and then back to the Aegis video, part 2 of my Aegis video that I need to finish. So that's just kind of an idea of what's going on. Feel free to ask some questions if you guys have any questions. So how do we ask questions? You can just ask them here, yeah. No OnlyFans. If I had an OnlyFans, it would just be me posting pictures of fans, dude fast. Literally, I would just be posting pictures of like desk fans and ceiling fans. That's the only thing I would do. I'm sure it's already been done, which is why I don't do it. What's the historian going to say about a race with no history, about the Banu? Think of it less as a history and more as a sociological overview. Bitmao, you're interested in the story of, why am I blanking on his name? I already forgot him. Anthony Tanaka. Remember who? Anthony Tanaka. We talked about that last week, but I'll go into a very brief idea. Levski was a mining colony that was abandoned sometime during the Meser era, and a group of dissidents took over this mining colony and turned it into what they call they called it Levski. Now, Levski is actually the name of a famous guerrilla fighter from the Balkans who fought against, I believe, the Nazis during World War II. It might have been earlier than that. I can't remember the name, but Levski, the name itself, is a reference to a guerrilla fighter. And the statue that says "Remember Anthony Tanaka" is a dramatization of the death of Anthony Tanaka. Anthony Tanaka, his death was recorded and spread all over the empire during towards the waning years of the Meser era. And his death was one of the inspirations behind a lot of the rebellions that would rise up to overthrow the tyrannical family known as the Mezers, who had controlled the UEE for 300 years by that point. So, his death is still very important. It's still remembered on December 2nd. December 2nd is Anthony Tanaka Day, because that was the date of his death. So, it's a very important political understanding. You got to understand that Star Citizen's content is, its lore is very steeped in the political nature of the universe, the big picture instead of the small pictures. And the reason why that is because it's easier, and they even talked about this last Friday, it's easier for them to write big generic statements and then kind of work their way down than it is for them to write small little details. Because if they can build the world out, they can flesh it out here and there with little things, but they want to leave huge gaps open for players and for the developers to write their own stories. If they want to have a cool mission giver that has one eye and like a robotic peg leg and calls himself Captain Seahorn, Scourge of the Black, then they want to do that, and they don't want to have to like write it in a corner where a guy like that would never exist in the universe. They want to have the ability to be flexible. It's like, oh yeah, he'd be in Spider. Well, yeah, let's just make him one of the leaders of Spider. Why not? So you'll notice that. So as a result, a lot of the lore that's there is big political statements, and especially in history. So I'll save my Nautilus question for later. Then feel free to you can ask if you want. What do you expect from the message from the Banu tomorrow? Bang bang, Banu. That's what I expect. Do you think that there are still Measure loyalist sympathizers out there? I'll let you know a secret. There's another video that's going to come out sometime in July. That's kind of more of a theory crafting lore video, which is we don't know what happened to the last Messer. Linton, Messer the 11th, was killed. We know that for sure. History books at least record that he's dead. Not he was dethroned and killed. His sister disappeared. We don't know what happened to his sister. She disappears from the history books altogether. Though she was quintessential to his rise as Linton's rise as emperor. So we don't know. We don't know what happened to her. She's probably dead by now. That was over 100 years ago, over 150 years ago in Star Citizen lore. She's definitely dead, but she could have kids. There could be Mezers still around, and there could be loyalists. So we know that at least one loyalist faction on Locke fought bitterly against rebels in sometime during or around or after the Mezer's overthrow, because Castak Arms supplied weapons to the rebels against the Mezer regime, the Mezer governor who was still holding on to power, and in thanks, the people of Locke sent them the Castak Arms their flag, the first flag of Locke, the free flag of Locke, as a thank you. So we know that's his history and lore. They don't really specify what happened. All we know is that rebels overthrew the dictator who was controlling Locke, and likely the dictator who was controlling Locke was during the Mezer era, and we know that the Castak Arms was around then, so it makes sense. I saw a doc Nisk the other day. It was cool. Nice. Defund the UEE. Defund the Advocacy. Yeah. They're already defunded, though. It's funny, though. It's interesting that this movement's going on. I mean, it's obviously completely different context, but there was a movement in the UEE 5 years ago in lore to defund the UEE because it was costing too much money, and they were trying to remove some of it, like basically make the military smaller so that they could support more programs. And there's a lot of like trickery behind the scenes, and the military is doing its best to prevent its funding from being cut. And then the Vanduul attacked Vega, and now that question fucking ended right then. So Banu don't seem to care about history at all. Just do they have friends, long-lasting relationships? Just wondering if they could possibly gain rep with a faction like that. Vengeful. It's not that they don't have history. It's just that their history dies when they die. The Vanduul don't, or the Vanduul, I'm sorry, the Banu don't keep... The Banu don't keep long records because for them it doesn't really matter. The thing that they care about is, can we make this better? So the Banu might have schematics from a ship that has been built for 60 years, unchanged, because it's the best they can build it. That's still history. They don't know who made it originally. They don't care who made it originally. They don't care how it came about. They have the schematics. They know how to build it. And when they figure out how to make a better version of that ship, they'll take the old schematics and throw them away and just build the new ship. It's not that they don't have history. It's that they don't record history in that way. There may be Banu who keep journals. There may be Banu who keep correspondence, but none of that is saved from life to life. So if you have good reputation with a Suli, you might still have a good reputation with the faction. You got to remember that the Banu are not a single faction. The Banu are hundreds, if not thousands, of different micro factions that are spread all over Banu space. So you won't be having a reputation with the Banu Protectorate. You'll have it for the individual Suli that make up the Banu Protectorate. For my history nerds out there, the Banu is basically the Holy Roman Empire. It's basically what it is. There's no, unlike the Holy Roman Empire, there isn't one like leader of the Banu Protectorate. What are the chances of Silas Kerner becoming a political figure? Pretty high. He'll probably run for Senate, would be my guess at some point. What are the biggest political rivals for the UEE? The Xi'an Empire. The Xi'an Empire is the biggest rival to the UEE. They're coordinated, they're long-lived, so you don't have a high turnover of leadership, unlike the UEE, which changes imperators every 10 years. They are highly advanced technologically, and they're really good at trade and diplomacy. But they're also duplicitous. They're very, very good at backroom deals. A lot of the reasons why the Mezers fell in the first place was because they made the Banu, or made the Xi'an, angry. And so when rebels started looking for places to run away from the Mezers when things got too hot, the Xi'an welcomed them with open arms. And then reinserted them into the UEE when it was convenient for them and inconvenient for the Mezers. So the Xi'an are probably the biggest political rivals, but there was a Cold War with the Xi'an, and it slowly thawed. We're towards the end of a Cold War, right at the top in the Cold War between the Xi'an and humanity, mostly because of Misk. Actually, Misk managed to reach out across the borders and get technology from the Xi'an. I keep saying the Banu, from the Xi'an, and they exchanged technologies. The Xi'an gave Misk some of their technology, and Misk gave in return the I keep saying it, the Xi'an schematics for the whole series. And as far as I know, and this was still true last time I checked, the Xi'an make whole series ships, Misk whole series ships for the Xi'an Empire. That's one of the reasons why the whole series is the most common ship in the galaxy, is because it's the standard shipping ship for humanity and the Xi'an. So that led to it's called the Huxa, the Human Xi'an Trade Agreement, and that's led to a POA. POA, am I right? The Xi'an ship manufacturer releasing the Nox, the Cartual, and the Sanctuc Yai into human markets. It's led to other companies fuel companies to come into UEE and start selling cheaper fuel. So it goes back both ways. So it's a slow detente because of commercial evaluation. The Xi'an are also starting to embrace, some younger Xi'an are starting to embrace human ideals, much to the chagrin of Xi'an. You saw a doc on Drake? Yeah, we did a couple of those. She was canceled? Who was canceled, Darsh? Oh, Naule, the Tavaran special units. I know what you're talking about. The ones that had 343 different combat martial arts. Yeah, they're the special boarding, like the special forces. They use that were the ones that used the prowlers. Nice, man. The UE is sort of like the Empire in Star Wars. They're not quite good, but there's not really any competition for the brand of order they can impose. Not in human terms, no. The closest is the what I dub the Outlaw Confederacy, which is a loose alliance of different pirate factions and syndicates, gangs and syndicates that realize that they work better together than when it's them versus the UEE, they're going to band together, but they'll fight amongst each other otherwise. Kind of like the Greeks and the Persians. Where's Cossack Arms HQ? Vega. I forgot which planet in Vega, but Vega is their headquarters. Kind of like the Romanovs. Yeah. It's very similar to Princess Anastasia in the Romanovs in terms of the fall of the Mezers. The Vanduul are inside job. Yeah, defund the advocacy, arm the workers. Yeah, thank you, Vila. I mean, I for those of you guys who don't know, I talk a lot about politics and history on my Twitter. I tend to not do it a lot on streams or on YouTube, not because I don't want to, but because it needs a proper context. There needs to be some proper discussion format. Just me saying my opinions doesn't really matter. You either agree or disagree with me on those opinions. Even if I state facts, it doesn't really matter because there's no context to those facts. So I do a lot of that on Twitter. But there's a lot of stuff that if you've been following me long enough, you know that, like, it's complicated. Follow me on Twitter. But thank you, Vilo. Paul, yeah. Hey, Fizzlefuse. No problem there, Colby. We get some biddies. Oh, Sci-fi, thank you for subscribing 15 months there, my man. Evening, folks, evening. Some woman got removed from history. I came in during that sentence. The sister of Linton Mezer II. I have to look up her name, but she was key to the rise of Linton Mezer, not Linton Mezer II. Listen, Linton Mezer, who's also Mezer the 11th, who's also the last Mezer. His sister disappeared. We don't know what happened to her. There's no historical records of what happened to her that we know of. She could still be alive. Well, no, she's definitely dead. It's been too long. It's been over 200 years since the revolt. Well, it was 2780 something, 81, I think. Yeah, so it would have been 100 and almost 50 years. Yeah, well over 100 years, and she was already old, not old, but she was definitely not young by the time the fall of Mezer. So there's just no way she's alive, because she would be the oldest living human being that ever lived if that was the case. But it could be that she escaped. She has children. So which means that the Mezzers still live, which is a scary proposition. Cool idea for CIG to run with. The return of the Mezzers trying to overthrow the government. It'd be such a good story to run down. Am I a teacher? That's my day job. Yes, I'm a civics teacher. So, well, not civics, social studies. So I teach civics, government, psychology, economics, world history, U.S. history. Trying to think of what else I've taught. World geography. Yeah, that kind of stuff. That's my day job. But it's the summer, so I don't have anything to do, really. Well, I do, but not a lot. Especially since they don't know if they're going to open schools up in the spring or in the fall. We don't even know what's going to happen in August, so. I was fascinated by the UEE Navy, especially their basic training. It's very interesting. It's very loose, the Navy training. For those of you guys who don't know, the way the Navy trains is you get sent to Killian, and then at Killian, you go to a forge. And at the forge, you go through some basic training like you would do at any armed forces. And during that basic training, you're picked out based off of your aptitudes. So some people are sent to the Marines, some people are sent to flight school, and so on and so forth. So whereas like in modern militaries, as far as this is just never served in the military myself, so I can't 100% say this, but as far as I understand, modern militaries require you to go through officer training to be a pilot, especially in the U.S. Air Force and Navy and Marines. They're all officers. In the Star Citizen universe, you get a commission to officer if you've been chosen for flight school. So you don't even have to go to university. You don't have to go to any training. You just get commissioned as a lieutenant. You just jumped right into flight school. And it doesn't seem like there's like officer training. There's no military academy. There are military academies, but there's no direct military academy. There's no like feeding school where you go from military academies directly into the service. Everyone gets sent to a forge. Everyone has to go through the same training. So. You sound like a professor. I am, sort of. I just don't have a PhD. That's such a crappy soap opera twist. Darsh, don't knock it. Don't knock it. You know you'd love to see an uprising of Mezzers. All training bases are called forges, and all of them are on Killian. Yeah. Now, the Marine headquarters is MacArthur, which is a moon of Terra, I want to say. Yes, pilots exclusive officers in modern U.S., yeah. No, everyone is genetically enhanced. When you're born in the Star Citizen universe, you are free of all diseases, all genetic abnormalities, and you're genetically modified to be almost perfect. In fact, it's such a degree that there's a kind of a hipster movement to look ugly. Getting cosmetic surgery to look uglier because you stand out, because everyone looks perfect. That's the idea. You do age, you just don't age as harsh. So, for instance, Admiral Bishop, who you see in the speeches and all kind of stuff, he's the head of one of the fleets of the, probably the head of all the main Navy fleets, possibly at this point. He's the one who's in command of the Retribution, the Dreadnought ship. He is like 140 years old. So, in lore, he's really old. Which is, yeah, I mean, that whole genetic modification thing is a way that they can hand wave that everyone's the same height and weight. So they don't have to change it. But no, they're not necessarily genetically enhanced. Not specifically for combat. They are given augmentations in terms of powered suits, like access to Titan suits, which are essentially powered armor. It's like a cross between a power armor and a mech. So it's like 8 feet tall, carries size 1 ship guns on them, as far as I understand. So think of them as size 1 or size 2, possibly even. Think of them as like larger cyclones, but you could wear them. About the Vanduul, did the UEE ever figure out the significance of the blade imagery in their culture? Is it religion-based? We don't 100% know. It likely is. The top xenobiologists or xenoanthropologists, I guess, in Moscow, at who the first people to really study Xi'an, or the Vanduul. Now I'm saying the wrong ones again. The Vanduul believe that the blades have a very specific significance in terms of their culture. All adult Vanduul seem to carry blades of some shape on them. So it's either religious or just purely cultural. We don't even know if they have a religion. There's no indication that they have a religion. And it also may be based on their claws. The fact that every Vanduul has longer claws on their hands, which, the blade might be like kind of an extension of the person. It has something to do. It's a big cultural influence. We don't know if it's religion. We don't know if it's just pure culture. Think of it kind of like there's a patch on every human's, or on today in a modern world, military members have patches of the flags of the country that they serve on, usually on their shoulders. There's no reason for it other than identifying each other. But even like military service members in the United States will still have a U.S. flag on their shoulders. They don't need to know that they're from the U.S., but they still have it on there. It's like that kind of. It could be just like that, just a tradition that everyone has them because they do. Or like that military officers carry sabers for like ceremonial purposes. Weapons are part of my religion? Yes. Question: forgotten or missing military missions? Anything of that sort? There's plenty of missing. The 88th Squadron, the Lost Squad, is believed to be completely destroyed. There's the Virgil raid, where a squadron of Gladiator bombers went into Vanduul territory after picking up a distress signal from a downed Gladiator that went missing 100 years before. They snuck into Vanduul territory, found the distress signal, and found that like an errant lightning strike had reactivated the distress signal on a downed Gladiator. They found the remains of 2 pilots, brought them back with them through the trunk gate, and gave them a proper burial. It's called the Virgil raid because they did it against orders. To go save people, this is whom they thought were still alive in Vanduul territory. There's probably more of them like that, but I'm sure that CIG and the lore team want to wait for players to experience those themselves. What about humans outside of the UEE, outside of the reach of modern human medicine? Is it genetics at this point, or in vitro like Gattaca? Most humans outside of the UEE use cybernetic enhancements because they're easier to maintain. Shipjackers, for instance, have been known to have heavy amounts of cybernetic implants on them. There may be genetic modification. There's at least one. There's the one character in Squadron 42 we've seen in the cutscene, who was a member of the OMC, the big dude. He might be genetically modified as well. So there's definitely evidence of genetic modifications and like cybernetic augmentation being popular outside of the UE. And cybernetic augmentation makes a little bit more sense because it requires maintenance, but it's cheaper. And whereas genetic modification requires to be done at birth, it's not something you can do after you've already been born. It's something you have to do at birth. Is Retribution bigger than the Vanduul kingship? It's about the same size. The Retribution's about the same size as a kingship. It's basically a kingship killer is what it's designed to be. It's a human kingship. So a Space Marine. I mean, you don't really have Gene Seed style Space Marines in Star Citizen lore. The closest are UEE Marines, who are just really tough and rugged, but they're not genetically modified. Like on Avatar, yeah, or Paraloaders from Aliens. Yes, essentially the mech from Avatar or the Paraloaders from Aliens are the equivalent of what the Titan suit is. In fact, that's what inspired the Titan suits in the first place. In terms of the purpose of them, Chris Roberts is a huge Aliens fan. I think he's just a big James Cameron fan, and Paraloaders didn't have miniguns. Yes, but there might be civilian versions of the Titan suits. We don't know. So for every race, you call another race +1. Yes. I wonder if it's identifying the different shape and colors of blades to signify the clan they belong to. Likely. I mean, we also know that the Vanduul have bioluminescence, so they may also communicate through bioluminescence partially. Also stabbing. They do like to stab things. The 214. I have to look up the 214, but probably. A perfect example. USMC Marine NCOs carry a cavalry saber, while the Marine officers carry a Maluk sword. Yes, that's a good example of like they carry sabers. You don't carry them to combat, but they're definitely ceremonial. A good example would be World War II. Japanese officers would carry a katana or daikatana, the smaller versions as well, into battle. Several soldiers would as well, mostly for ceremonial purposes, but they would also use them in combat. So they some of them would carry them in, some of them wouldn't. As far as we understand with the Vanduul, they don't always carry their smaller blades with them. That may be something like you carry your spear when you go into combat, and when you get back from combat, you put away your spear weapon and you walk around with your like a knife, or some kind of blade on you as a sign of your. This is spitballing. This is not lore. Possibly something like a sign of your status in society. It could be a sign of your valor. I would almost believe that most bladed weapons, most Vanduul bladed weapons are probably built by the Vanduul themselves. I'd imagine that building your first blade would be a rite of passage for most young Vanduul. This is just me, again, spitballing, but that seems right in terms of how the Vanduul have been discovered or been discussed. I'm looking forward to accidentally eating Xi'an food and getting my sick to my stomach. They had a lot of rotten food. How's teaching going? I don't have to do it right now, so I'm ecstatic. I'm just concerned about what's going to happen in the fall. Vengeful Devil, I hear the Vanduul ships are hard to capture because they often self-destruct. Is the doctrine of the Vanduul just simply are simply mechanical in nature? It's doctrine. Every Vanduul ship is designed to self-destruct rather than be captured by the enemy. Pirates are way outside the UEE. Yeah, I mean Spider at Cathcart, super outside the UEE. It takes 2 jumps to even get into the UEE from Spider. One of those jumps is possibly Hades, so you literally got to go through hell to get to to get to Spider. Yeah, you wouldn't take a marine ceremonial blade into combat like a modern day U.S. Marine Corps ceremonial swords are not designed for combat. They're leftovers from their time at on board ships. The KWR is a good analogy. Yeah, there we go. So shoot the pilots and take the bridge first. Basically, it's the best you got. The K-12, I want to say, or the X-12. The X-12 is the designation of a Vanduul kingship that was captured by the UEE. And the only reason why it was captured was because some sort of mechanical error flooded the ship with radiation, killing everyone on board, except for a handful of Vanduul. And that handful of Vanduul was unable to set the self-destruct. So when the Marines boarded the ship, they were able to take out the remaining Vanduul pretty easily and claim it, which is where all of the current scythes come from. If you own a scythe, you own a scythe from the X-12. I think it's the X-12. X4? X-12. Yeah, X-12. I was right for once. A lot of people are like, Paul, you have such encyclopedic knowledge of Star Citizens. Like, I got a general idea of what's in Star Citizen lore, and then I just go look it up. That's what every historian does. Unless it's their very specific niche subject, they'll look it up. I remember hearing something a while back about Vanduul wearing less armor to show combat prowess. Does that mean that the elite warriors fight naked? Yep. Elite warriors will fight buck naked. Now you got to remember that Vanduul have natural armor. As far as we know, we've seen fully naked Vanduul. They have like armor plates on them and such. And the current design looks very much like like an anglerfish. They look very aquatic in nature, almost. And fun fact, the tendrils on the back of the Vanduul's head, I didn't know this until CIG posted this, are actually the sensors. So it's like their nose and their ears and their like a. It's where how they sense the world. It's like whiskers on the back of their hair. Is there any large companies that's in lore that's not in game that have big part in the verse that's not in the Crusader system? Yes, I mean Bering is in Terra. Anvil Aerospace is in Terra. It's New Kiev. Origins in Terra. It's New Austin. You've got Drake, which is in Magnus. Berea, I think is the planet. Newcastle is where they're headquartered, I believe, which is the capital of Berea. I'm trying to think what else is there. You've got Sakura Sun located at Seoul. There's a lot of companies that are in game that are not located in Stanton that build products or other things, collect defense systems. We talked about Castic Arms is located out of Vega. So now in terms of that's specifically not in lore yet, it's not in game yet. Probably are. I'd have to look it up. But there's some that are lightly in there, like AeroView, which makes hangars. The first full AeroView hangar, which is in the PU, is actually in Microtech. But up to that point, most of the AeroView hangars, you'd have to go through like your actual hangar to see them. Greycat's in game. Shubin, there's mining facilities all over Shubin. Fizz for a while was sort of in game as advertisements. If you look at the advertisements, there's a lot of advertisements for ships and for like companies that some may exist in game, some of them may not. Apocalypse Arms is in game though. There's Apocalypse Arms weapons, so they tend to keep it pretty close to the vest. In terms of stuff, Bering is technically not in game. Bering Applied Design which is all the weapons manufacturing for Bering. Sakura's Sun is technically in game, but they make a lot more than just weapons and power plants. They make like trinkets too, like toys. So. Void Bomber somehow? Yeah. They should have a deadband switch. They do, but it seems like at least with the larger Vanduul ships, there is no deadband switch. They have to actually have access to the reactor to set it off. But most of the smaller ships do have deadband switches. Any cool lore about the Pyro systems you know of? Yeah. Let me look it up real quick. There's one, the specific name. There's a vigilante crew, which I have to still do more research on. I'll do it when we talk about when Pyro becomes more closer to the game. The Overlords. The Overlords is a vigilante crew of do-gooders who fly around Pyro killing pirates. And they have pissed off the Xeno threat. They pissed them off something fierce. Which is where the Overlord armor comes from. Those are all designs from the Overlords themselves, who have been fighting the good fight in Pyro for a while. Pyro was originally claimed by a mining company that tried to terraform the last planet in the Pyro system. They found out it wasn't worthwhile. They strip mined all value off of most of the planets and moons in the system and left. They left the station, which was built there to monitor the terraforming. Pirates have come in, and various pirate factions have controlled the station for a while. It's now called Ruin Station. The current leader of Ruin Station, and thus, presumptively the entire system, is called the Xenothreat. Xenothreat is a group of violent gang, which is made up of many ex-military, ex-UEE members who've become disillusioned with the UEE. They believe that the government has been infiltrated by aliens, and that aliens are slowly weakening humanity to take it over. And so they're plotting nasty things to happen around it. They're extremists to the max, but their low-level thugs have a lot of combat experience because they've been fighting for Ruin Station for most of their lives. But their leaders are all ex-military, so they have actual combat experience. Nothing is more terrifying than a screaming, fearless, naked alien with a knife. That's true. What does ArcCorp do besides look cool? Their biggest claim to fame is the fusion engines. They make jump drives. Lots and lots of jump drives. And their jump drive technology has become the standard by which all other jump drives are based off of. They make pretty much everything. They're a variety company. They started off as an exploration company, then became a mineral resources company, and then a mining company, and then a settlement company, and then a terraforming company. They essentially started off their life as this, like somewhere in the middle. Their middle life was an all-in-one, buy your planet from ArcCorp, and we'll terraform it for you to exactly your specifications, and you'll get the mineral rights to what you want. Essentially, like all-in-one colonization package is what they started off as. And they figured out a way to disassemble and move the heavy, because you have to, like, how terraforming works is you have to build the stations in orbit. So once you've built a terraforming station in orbit, once it's terraformed, that station's useless. It has no purpose, and you can't move them. And so what they did was they figured out a way to disassemble it and move these terraforming platforms so that they're no longer just stagnant. And they also used a lot of that technology towards the Nova Light engines, which is the thing that has now their claim to fame. Now everyone knows. Yeah. Do you think we'll be able to visit the alien home worlds? Well, conveniently, there's only one that we know of, which is Xi'an, which is the homeworld of the Tavaran, which is also in UEE space. The Banu forgot where their homeworld was, and the Xi'an don't want to tell anybody where their homeworld is because they no longer live on their homeworld. That's true. They've lost their homeworld a long time ago. They know where it is. They just don't want to talk about it. The Vanduul likely don't know where their homeworld is either, or they may not really have a homeworld. They probably did at one point, but no longer. So there's really only two homeworlds that we know of, and both of them are in UE space. So do we think that CIG is going to sell the kingship in the future? No, not at all. What if the screaming, fearless nakedness is welcoming greetings of friendship? It could be. Wielding a knife over your head. Welcome! Sounds like a Scottish greeting. That's more, yeah, it's just, Radar! Screams in Scottish. Does anyone know if the BEMM will have external utility slots? We don't know. They've completely put it back to concept, so there's a lot of stuff they're gonna have to work on. Do UEE first contact teams have xenolinguists? They have many xenolinguists. And it's called a... Help me out, Marines. Marines in chat. Action team? Can't remember the name of it. Let me look it up real quickly. Look up the first contact. SOC. The UEE has SOC teams, which are designed for first contact. They have had since the Banu. Since before the Banu. Special operations capable. Yeah. I don't know why you'd have a spec ops team as a first contact, but I guess they'd be a little bit more discreet than bringing in the fleet. Fast team, probably a fast team too. They call them but in lore they call them the SOC. React teams. Yeah. Question about about Drake. Is there anything to put a finger on when it comes to internal tension with their CEO to get in better graces or not? So the current CEO is a fixer. He comes into companies which are having problems and then fixes them, having with better reputation, and helps companies that are failing economically. You got to remember that Jan Dredge and her son were the people who'd been leading Drake since they were founded. In fact, Jan was the leader of the team that built the Cutlass, and that team that built the Cutlass and her formed Drake in order to sell the Cutlass, because the Cutlass was done by them as an independent project to sell to the military on Magnus. This is back right after Magnus had no longer become a military, because Magnus used to be the head of military production. It's where all the ships in the UEE were built. So it was a military-based economy on the planet. And when they moved that to Killian, the economy collapsed on Magnus, and so a lot of bad stuff started happening. So a lot of Jan Dredge and her team were kind of remnants of that time period where they were no longer living in an area where ships were being developed and sold, or developed and built for the Navy, but there were still a lot of facilities there for that purpose. So they built the Cutlass as part of a competition to compete against Anvil and Aegis and lost. And so then they took their design and went public with it, creating Drake Interplanetary. She only just recently stepped down because of the piracy concerns. And the new CEO who stepped in is basically just there to fix their image. In all reality, Drake probably hasn't changed at all in terms of selling to whoever the hell they wanted to. It's just this guy looks better because he's helped other companies. So about jump points. Is there any lore about the current scientific understanding of what they are? We don't know if they're naturally formed. We assume they're naturally formed. And the way they've been described in lore is a singularity. I think they're trying to keep it intentionally vague, but the best comparison is a wormhole, a stable wormhole. Which then brings up a lot of the questions, because wormholes don't always just exist between 2 points in space. They can also exist in 2 points in time, I believe, theoretically. An Einstein-Rosen bridge. We know that they collapse naturally, but we don't know if you can make them naturally either. That's the closest. The closest thing we have is a wormhole. Yeah. Yeah, they could go all over the universe. We don't even know if it exists. We just know that the tunnels and the way they work. It's 27 million? No, we've got billions of humans. 27 billion would probably be the closest to it. We know that some planets have several billion people on them already. Oh, 27 million active spacefarers, yes. That may also just be a background number rather than the actual number. So it's a hand wavium kind of thing. Because it's 10-to-1 correlation, so if you have 2.7 million, you have to times that by 10, and that will give you the actual number. That's more of the background calculation than the lore. In lore, there are hundreds of millions, billions of people who fly around space all the time. Planets have we know that some planets have populations upwards of 7 to 8 billion people on them. Earth is not as big as it is today. It's only got maybe, I have to look it up again, but it's like 3 to 4 billion, I think. Is what Earth looks like. So it's like what the population was middle of the 20th century rather than what it is today. Everyone seems to think special forces are always bang, bang, kill, target eliminated. But in reality, special forces are actually very highly educated and often trainers and teachers of military doctrine with linguists, better equipment, and foreign allies. Yeah, I mean, a good example of that is Green Berets. Green Berets aren't designed to go kill things. Their design is to drop in behind enemy lines and train local militia to fight for the side you want to win, for your side. A lot of SEAL teams and stuff like that have linguists and engineers on them because they need to know. Sometimes they do destructive duty, but the best special operations team is special operations mission is one where no one knew you're there in the first place. You were able to get in, do your job, and get out, and not a single person was killed, and not a single person knew you were there. It's just the big, explosive ones that people tend to pay attention to, but your average Spec Ops team might go for 100 missions, and only 2 of them have ever become public. Because a lot of it is just sit in the desert, take pictures. Do we know if Banu ships are grown or crafted? They're crafted. They have an organic look to them, but they're definitely crafted. What better way to win a fight than have someone else fight it for you? Exactly. Probably not saying words. Can jump points be destroyed or disrupted? Not that we know of. They can collapse though, so likely they could. Just that's in lore, maybe not in game. The more I look at the Cutlass Blue, the more I'm convinced it's made purely to attack and disable medium freighters, to get goods and sell the crew into slavery. It's pure PR move. That, and because Drake is very, very good at selling to all sides, it's designed to be a cheap security ship as well. So it is designed to be a security ship. It's just got a dual purpose. It's a bounty hunter ship, it's a security ship, and it's also a slaver ship. Just like the Cutlass Red. The Cutlass Red is a medical ship. It can also be used for some other purposes. Do you know of anything about the aliens sitting on the other side of the Xi'an, the Kurthok? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All we know is the Xi'an fought the Spirit Wars with the Kurthok. That is it. And that the Kurthok nearly wiped out the Xi'an 3,000 years ago. But they have a unsteady truce with them. Not a peace, but a truce. Is there more information on Misk and the relationship with aliens? Just that it's getting stronger. They trade technology all the time. It's why the Reliant exists. The Reliant is built by Xi'an engineers who work for Misk. That's basically what it is. It's designed as a ship that's to work. The Reliant is designed as a ship to appeal to the human market and to the Banu or to the Xi'an market at the same time. I don't think CIG entirely know what they're going to work in game. The one thing that's important to understand about a lot of lore is that a lot of lore is left open because the lore team doesn't want to have to tackle that until that gets into game. So things like the synth world, things like the Kurthok, things like Cabal, where they found the cache of Tavaran weapons, ancient Tavaran weapons, where the Prowler comes to being. Things like Olympus, where a Tavaran pirate lord controls that region. Things like the Outlaw Confederacy and Nexus and Spider. All of these things are being left open so that players can have an impact on which direction those things go. I need a haircut, but I'm not going out when there's so many people getting sick. I'm surprised we don't see more AI from other races since it's only humanity that banned it. I think the way that they work out it in lore is that all AI has failed for every civilization that's tried it. Though the Xi'an are pretty secret, so they may actually have it working. They just don't tell anybody. Are jump points the only method for travel between systems? Currently, there's a crazy dude who's been trying to build essentially a warp drive for a while, but that's not been working. Question, do you think the lore will have some event for when all Star Citizen players enter the universe when the game releases? For example, why did hundreds of people just get interested in Krakens? No. I think because of the nature of Star Citizen, I think that you'll likely have just a slow rollout of systems, and the lore will start to roll out with the systems. It's no secret that there was a signal that was being played on Port Olisar for a while, and that there was audio data mined from it, the full unfiltered one, which includes references to mission givers and to an event with the Xeno threat in Stanton. So my theory is that situation is going to be the start of Star Citizen's story. And it's going to be one of those situations where CIG can just pretend it didn't exist if it doesn't go well. It's their first attempt at a story event. And it's local. It's Stanton and Pyro. It's a conflict between those two systems, which plays into the larger story of stuff, but Stanton and Pyro. So when you have stuff like that, you're likely going to have that kind of thing play out in larger scale as more systems come in. You'll start having stories inside those systems that may bleed into other systems. But there was not going to be just one big singular event. So that being said, when Star Citizen releases, I guarantee you they will not have an event. They will not have an in-lore event. It'll just be, they'll continue whatever thread of stories they want to tell in the storylines, because that could be 5-10 years from now. Star Citizen will probably have a release, meaning no more wipes, once they get 5 or 6 systems into the game. Just because once they get that point, once they're at a beta stage, you're not going to have to really worry about wipes. You can still start telling stories. It is kind of sad because it means you're probably not going to have like Vanduul or Banu or Xi'an heavily involved in the storylines early on, and it may take years for them to get involved, but that's the nature, the kind of the reality of the situation they're in. They really, Drew, I don't think they really will have anything like that, because again, like, it's going to be a rolling situation. Technically, the Jump Town Wars, for instance, are in lore, so they already have the entrance of real players in the PU. The people who participated in Jump Town Wars, myself included, were part of an event that has been canonized in lore. So as they go forward, they'll choose what is canonized and what isn't. So, yeah. Does Earth still have deserts? We don't know. I really don't know. Probably not. But they don't. We know that they likely haven't turned terraforming technologies back onto Sol. It seems to be a big movement to preserve the past of Sol. So a lot of older buildings are being preserved for the sake of posterity, for history. So there seems to be an element to kind of preserve where humanity was at the, mid 22nd, 23rd centuries, once humanity started to filter out into the universe, when they started to empty out Earth. About the Banu, we know that they're slavers, but can a Banu just legally capture you and sell you? Yes. Doesn't the treaty between the Banu and UEE have some rules against that? Yes. Yes, they can capture you and sell you because they can just lie. And they do that all the time. And they also have contracts, like the old historical example is like Shanghaiing, where, sailors or people would get drunk in San Francisco bars or get drugged, and then they'd be dragged out into a ship, and then the ship would be sent off into the ocean, and by the time you wake up, you and 15 other people are already on a ship bound for China. Good luck, son. Go. You want to swim? It's, a day, 4 days swimming back that way. They do that all the time, and there's a big travel advisory for anyone dealing in Banu space to be very careful of their slaving, the slaving Suli. And yes, it does technically. I don't know why I hit just type 3, but okay. It is technically illegal for them to do that against the will of a human. They do it all the time because law in the Banu space is very, very loose. Even a 64-bit precision, there isn't enough to make traversable from one system to another feasible. Also, it would take generations, even at the fastest QT speeds. Yeah. Is a Santok a spider? No, it's a bird. It's a, the Santuk is a bird of prey. So the Santok it would be like calling a ship a falcon or the hawk. I talked to Drake about a job position today. They asked how many kidneys I had. Yeah. Xi'an Kuthak is like North and South Korea. Kind of, yeah. It's more like Japan and China. Historically always on edge with one another. But yeah, North and South Korea currently is still at war, even though there's really not been active hostilities, which is why every so often, like recently, they just start shooting at each other. Cut your own bangs. That always worked out well. Yeah, that always worked well. I just shave all the hair. I need to at least like trim the beard some. I'm starting to eat my my mustache. Weird question, but if your hair color natural, I'm going gray and I have a dark beard, so I'm wondering. Yeah, it's natural. You can see right there where my gray is starting to creep in from down here and over here. You can see some of the gray in there. So it's natural. And it depends. Like, the longer it is, the more gray it gets. The shorter it is, the less it is. I think what happens is that my hair is, like, grows, in many cases, like, darker, and then gets grayer as it goes to the front. Am I limited to human character, or am I being unreasonable asking for a Banu character? You are limited to a human character for now. They said way long ago, 2012, 2013, that if they were to do a paid expansion, it would be for alien access for playable aliens. But again, we're still talking like maybe a decade before the game is fully out with 100 systems. So maybe in 10 years. Looking forward to the discovery that we can have of new systems. Yeah, I mean, there'll be some interesting discoveries, for sure. Is the Smuggler's Triangle just going to be added to the lore, similar to Jumptown? I don't know. If CIG wants to. Right now, it just happens to be it works in the systems that they have. If it blows up like Jumptown did, maybe. Will the Invictus event, Idris Shootdown, become part of lore? I'd like to say it will be, but they haven't decided to do that. And the way that they would do that is they would mention it in a news post, offhandedly. But they haven't done that, so probably not. Banu, look at me. Not giving a shit. Want to see more? See me do it again? Yeah, the Banu really have literally no qualms about those sorts of things. Because to a Banu, selling you into servitude isn't so much a problem, because you're still going to get paid. This is going to sound weird, but like, again, it's indentured servitude, not slavery. But because you can be sent there against your will, it kind of is slavery. It's just the way that it functions is a little weird. I got shanghaied, yeah. Looks like I'll be stealing Banu ships for a living. Yeah. Hey, Sodi Pin My Guts. This is Galactic Story and Office Hours, where we just kind of hang out and talk about Star Citizen and Star Citizen lore. Life extension technology is something we're on the cusp of even today. Is there anything in the lore about Star Citizen about life extension? Yes. It's going to be worked into even in-game mechanics, Massa, where the idea is that you pay a certain amount of money and you can get some of your life back. So, I hate when my mustache gets long enough that you can get in my mouth. Yeah. They have a ceasefire agreement. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's just for like that one character sort of thing. I mean, it'll be a subscriptionless MMO. Yes, there's no subscription. They'd have to do 10 systems for a year for it to be out. Would be 100 systems. Out with 100 systems, not happening. 10 systems in 10 years. We'll see. It depends on how quickly, because you got to remember that not all the systems are Stanton, and apparently this is maybe a rumor, maybe not, that CIG is having another studio open up with not Behavior. What are they called? There's a brand new system from brand new office being opened up from the crew that's currently working on Spectrum to just make systems. I don't know if that's true or not, but hey, Solar Punch. Paul, I'm not sure if the question fits to today's table, but what the heck happened to Grimhex? Half the stations without gravity, without atmosphere. The Nine Tails happened to Grimhex. Grimhex has been abandoned. It was a system that was built 100 years ago and has been slowly not taken care of by anybody, and was completely abandoned like 20 years ago. And pirates have taken over, most of whom don't care about maintenance. That's what happened to Grimhex. Question, is there any interesting lore about data runners, hackers? Does it involve corporate espionage and data transport? There's a lot of it. There's Lost Generation, I think, has an entire story arc about data runners and hackers, which involves a amateur archaeologist. There's an entire story thread about stealing data from Bering's Laser Lab on Terra, which was the whole Star Runner like thing. There was that whole game where you had to find where the Star Runner was, by two criminals who were known data thieves. So there's a lot of lore behind it. There's a lot of discussions about like stealing from one company, giving it to another, stealing from the government, that kind of stuff. So do we have any instances of interspecies relationship in lore? Well, there's a if you look at some of the in-game magazines, there's a sensationalist article which says like, I'm in love with the Tavaran. There's likely been interspecies relationships, but unlike like Star Trek, you're kind of universes, you're not going to have interspecies children. Turbulent, thank you, Turbulent. Turbulent is the company that they apparently are hiring an entire studio, opening an entire studio just to make systems for Star Citizen. Because you got to remember that I think there's like 5 people who make planets in CIG currently, and so what they're trying to do is get a company, basically have a company that's just making planets and systems for Star Citizen, using the tools that they've developed. I'll be grabbing some humans for the Banu. Pedro Jose, that's good luck. RE life extension, sure, but I mean like lifespan, not being brought back from the brink. Yes, the oldest humans have been is about 150 years old. I'm sure that there are some ways you can extend to about 190 years old, but there's no details in terms of how that works. I think it's basically just like genetics when you're born to make sure that you eliminate things like cancer and like being able to, or being at risk for any number of health conditions. Are there any Banu ships besides the BMM and the Defender that have been mentioned in lore? Nothing specifically, no. There may have been some in some of the stories, but I haven't read all of that. What's the latest design for Death Mechanics? Basically the same as there has been since the Death of the Spaceman first came out. As in, are humans and Star Citizens that are hundreds of years old? Yes. Bishop is 150 years old. You're not going to see a human over 200 years old, though. Do you think that the Castle Run scene from Solo movie with the Maelstrom and Sumna Firminoth monster would be too much and not Star Citizen universe and lore? Why not look up the coil? Look up the coil. Who doesn't want to be a planet maker? Hire me, Turbulent. I'll get the poutine. Or will there be permadeath? So it's going to be semi-permadeath. The way that the Death of a Spaceman works is that you have, you are a dance. You are a you play as a character, and I think the best way of describing this is you will have a certain number of lives. Think about it like a hard HP versus a soft HP bar. and that hard HP bar will go down every death. Every time your soft HP goes down to 0. Every time your soft HP goes down to 0, that's a death. That's when you respawn. And your hard HP will slowly whittle down over time. There'll be ways you can increase it over time. You can, but otherwise, if you do nothing, eventually it'll hit 0. And when it hits 0, you die for real. And when you die for real, your character will be gone. You then have to re-roll a character from scratch. That character will then inherit all of the money, some of the reputation, and your ships from your previous character. But there will be a death tax. So 20, 30%, maybe 50% of your wealth will just be taken from you because of you dying. So then, and you get only some of the reputation. You have to work back some of that reputation as well. So think of it as kind of not necessarily permadeath, but kind of partial permadeath, where it's inspired by he was inspired by the Soulsborne games. Chris was inspired by the Soulsborne games to do this. The kind of like how in Dark Souls, when you die, you don't necessarily lose everything if you can make it back and get your stuff, and you can maybe still survive and you can still continue forward. But after a certain number of times, you're just dead. Start over again, son. That kind of thing. So something that's not going to be punishing you for dying, but has some ways of siphoning funds away from you, so you don't just accumulate huge hordes of wealth without having to get rid of it. It's essentially a money sink, as well as a way for storytelling and role playing if you want. So, the Pyro's system, there isn't much to it. Yeah, like Nyx is pretty much done. All they got to do is build the planets. Another good example of this would be Green. There's not much on the planet. There's a landing zone, but it's mostly just water. It's where the Murray Kappa takes place. So I think their goal is to push a system every 3 to 6 months. That'd be good. They did Pyro 1 and 2 in like 3 weeks? Yeah, this is not much there. Most systems don't actually have any landing zones, so. That's not true. Pirates do care about maintenance. How else do you think their Drake's ships fly? They care only a little bit. Hey, Soda, how you doing, buddy? Oh, Sodi. Oh, Sodi. That was easy. By the way, Darj, if someone just is doing like that, give them a 24-hour ban. If anybody here's a mod, just do that kind of stuff. Paul, my food was beautiful and good. Awesome. Welcome, Buster. Felicia from a Tavaran. Whoa. Man. See, I was going through all of this stuff and I didn't even see... Yeah, go ahead and do that. All of a sudden this bad troll shows up. It's like I would have banned him really quickly. Bring lots of guns. So the Banu are very, very sweet. In lore, they're not evil. But it's easy to have misunderstandings and you can get sold into slavery. Most of them don't want to do that to you. It's just you got to be very careful about where you go and who you talk to and how you do so. You don't walk down the wrong streets because they will look for unique things like humans. Unique people like humans are very, very interesting to Banu because if they can get them to sell them into slavery, they can use them for their own, as for their unique skills or just as an oddity, because Banu love individuality, they love uniqueness. And most Banu who go in through their, put it this way, every Banu was a slave at one point. There is no Banu that exists that wasn't a slave. because it's in their culture that when they become of age, they're literally sold into slavery as kind of like an apprentice system. They're sold to a school, an apprentice Suli, who then sends them and then tests them on what they're good at, and then like contracts them out to a Suli, you know, for whatever they're good at. And in that Suli, they work to break down their debt. And then once they've worked down their debt, they can still stay in the Suli and work for them for money, or they can leave the Suli and go to another Suli. It's completely up to them. It's just the way that their system is worked out. It's just that humanity kind of fits in a weird spot for them. So. Yeah, I forgot I unmodded you, Darsh. Here, I'll change that. There you go. Dodge and Buster. Have you looked at the cooking competition for the Alien Week? If so, what's your favorite? I haven't yet, but Buster just made a bunch of stuff. If you guys don't know, Buster the Destroyer is a content creator. She's been on Captain's Table. She's part of the crew for The Spice Must Roll. And she's been making in-lore foods for Alien Week based off of actual recipes. She's been talking with Chris Haro, I think is his name, who's a big Xi'an language guy. He's another kind of lore guy. And then she's been talking with me. So we've been both giving her kind of ideas for food that we've seen in lore, which is pretty cool. Yeah, no, Masso's right. Banu slavery is much more of a indentured servitude, but it's still slavery. It's when you are sent there against your will. Soliman in my head right now. Kneel before Darsh. I saw Molly's cookies. They look really good, yeah. Thank you, Q-Pen. Your Twitter? Let me pull up your Twitter. I keep forgetting. Retweet, and we'll just get some more subs out. Make sure you guys are spreading the love, guys. You guys get a chance to. Remember, we are giving away a prospector all this month. For those of you guys on YouTube, I can't put the links on there because YouTube is currently blocking anything from Gleam. Because they don't like Gleam, and they think it's like it buffs the numbers for some reason, when in reality it doesn't really. I just want people who watch me on YouTube to watch me on Twitch, and Twitch to YouTube, and all of that stuff. So I just want to make sure that it happens. So we've got 3 retweets. So, yeah, spread the love and get 10 retweets. I'll give you guys 10 more beers. Pull up Buster the Destroyer. Buster the Destroyer. Pull this up over here. 11. We'll go here. So, this is Banu Fasa. This is all based off of actual dishes described in lore. That does look actually really good. Oh, yeah, of course. Betty Crocker. Well, yeah, that looks really good. Got that 50s style going on. Buster the Gut Destroyer. She gonna make food so good you can't help but getting fat. The fossil was the best. Any alien races lay eggs? Are the children born like ours? As far as I know, all of them are born live. The Banu are probably the only one we have this detailed procreation details on. I think the Tavaran probably too, and the Banu, the way that they work is they're a non-binary species. There's no male and female Banu. They don't exist. There's just Banu. And when two Banu decide they're going to have children, one chooses to be the carrier and the other one chooses to be the fertilizer, as it were. But they can be either one. There's no set rules, no genetics around that. I think it's something similar to like slugs or to worms, something similar. So as a result, we don't know. I think they're still live birth, but my theory is that the Banu are actually descended from sea urchins, from like a coral like people, like species. Because if you look at them, they've got their nostrils on the top of their head, which would indicate to me that they're air breathers, but only because they would originally live under the water, and then their top of the head was what they breathe out of. The way that their coloring and then their skin kind of contours, everyone says like, oh, it's like Groot. It's like less tree and more sea plant or sea creature. It seems like a lot of inspirations. So, who knows? With the new ability to transfer AUEC between players, will pirates be able to take over a trading post and charge landing fees? Theoretically, yeah. What gameplay or story implications can come from distinction between players being citizens while many NPCs are still civilians? Can players and citizen status be revoked? Yes and yes. Though what they've said in lore is that citizen status is really, it's really not that different. There's really not a huge difference between citizens and civilians. The major difference is that citizens have an easier time traveling between systems. They have an easier time setting up businesses because it's a lot easier for them to get licenses. It's essentially just an ease of life thing when you live between systems. Most citizens will own multi-system corporations, so they'll own a corporation that exists in Stanton and Pyro and Magnus and all those kind of places. So it's easier for them to get a license to do that because it's UEE. And I'm assuming that most citizens also don't necessarily live in one system. They tend to live all over the UEE or in a small region. Maybe they don't have one planet they call their home. They just move all over the place. So most citizens tend to be mobile, which is what fits with the players being citizens. Next concept ship. They're related to Snorks. Yeah. But Astropub is on. It's okay, Parker. We'll only be on for a little bit longer. The drink we had, Sloma, a Banu ritual drink, and I think the last drink was the human drink called QT Fuel or something. Nice. What Star Citizens plan on dealing with 1,000 players in a single room? I know rooms will be different servers, but what happens if everyone decides to just jump in a single room together? So Mahmoud, the way that they are planning on it is that every server, so like they're going to, if you've seen, forgot the name of the company. There's another game that's doing a similar situation that CIG is doing and how they're doing it. It's called dynamic instancing. So in, say, a freelancer could be its own server. Outside the freelancer is a server. Inside this freelancer is a separate server. So you're in a server flying through a server. And so the server on your freelancer could have 1,000 people, and there could be 1,000 ships in that server around you, and each one of those ships has their own server as well. In theory. This is not in practice yet. At the very least, what they're planning on doing is that they're going to limit the instances depending on how many people or objects are in that server. So if too many objects start spawning into a server, they will take a big server and then it'll dynamically spin up another one and split the servers into two. So you had, instead of having one big server, now you have two servers that cover that same area. But because of the nature of servers, server meshing, you can see out of your server into the other server and even shoot into that server seamlessly because of the streaming in and out. Things can still track that. So you would still have and as more and more people join or more objects are spawned in an area, the servers will get smaller and smaller in size and more servers will spin up. So dynamically they'll spin up, and then as they disperse, they'll slowly spin down and get into a larger area for saving space. So that's kind of one of the problems of Star Citizen, is that system has to be developed. Something like that doesn't exist in gaming yet. It doesn't exist in technology. So they have to develop a way that it can do that dynamically and intelligently. They know how to do it statically, which is why they talked about doing that first, is have a static system where you can fly from one system to another and you just go through a static barrier and have like limits on each one of those servers. That's more complicated. But when it comes to landing zones themselves may be layered. So a landing zone may have 1,000 people in it, a maximum 1,000 people. So New Babbage, 1,000 people, New Babbage. It's its own server. But then once the 1,001th person enters that server, new server, that lives below the other server, but it's a brand new server. So the 1,000 people won't see that one person. That one person won't see those 1,000 people. And they'll just layer it on top of each other for those social areas where you are likely to have a lot more cohesion of people together than you are in deep space. That's the theory. That's the last I heard from years ago. So I'm probably sure that a lot of people in chat are like, that's wrong, or that's not what they're plan on doing, but... Any information on Clark Defense Systems, because they make Outlaw heavy, but also most of the military gear and Legacy and New? Yeah, there's actually a lot of Clark Defense Systems. I thought there was. Ah. There's not. There's no official lore on them yet. Interesting. They seem to just make military and civilian. I thought I saw something. Maybe I'm confusing them with Basilisk. So it'll be like a clusterfuck. Well, Astro, part of Star Citizen runs on the Lumberyard engine, which is owned by Amazon. So I'm assuming that the reason why CIG switched from CryEngine to Lumberyard was because they were going with Amazon engines or Amazon servers. And I'm sure that they've negotiated some sort of deal to work with this. A lot of people theorize that what CIG is developing will then go back to Amazon at some point, and then that technology will be incorporated into Lumberyard, if not sold back to Amazon as like tools, so that they could use those tools for future developers. Essentially kind of like officially supported tools by Amazon that developers can use if they want, but it's not necessarily like incorporated into the base package of Lumberyard. And the theory goes that it could be anything where they're getting paid for it, or they just won't have as much fees, or the fees will be lower for Star Citizen because they're developing this technology on top of being that kind of thing. So, win-win. And it seems to work like that just because the way that Chris Roberts and his team have been negotiating deals. I'm guessing it's... I'm forgetting the name of the co-founder, and I feel so bad. He's a lawyer. He's really, really smart when it comes to negotiations. He's very good at it. He seems to be very good at getting the right deals. So, yeah, the layer instancing for major landing zones they said that eventually it's going to get too big, so it makes more sense. And the layer instancing will be determined by who you have. So if you're in an organization with 1,000 people, that landing zone, you may only see your organization members. So, hey, Aimless. Mahmoud, but it may be difficult to bug fix, but the idea is that it's not going to be something that is, it's not something that is going to be handmade. It's a tool that they'll develop so that it'll be done on its own. In theory, Astronestro, if a server crashes and you get a 30K, when you spin back up, you'll spin back up into a new server, which is one of the reasons why the iCache is important, because things like iCache will allow for your last save location to be recorded. So when you come back into the game, instead of being just back at your original spawn point, losing all your cargo, you will be back in the proximate area where you crashed with everything still intact. That's why iCache is important. It will make the 30Ks hurt less. And in theory, if your server crashes, they could ease you into a new server. So you'd have maybe a hiccup or some sort of stuttering going on, and then the game would just stream you into a new server while that server goes down. The benefits of having cloud servers. Do you think 3.11 will give us larger cargo containers and reduce server strain? Maybe. Probably not, because they got rid of docking for that, so. Going on to another question, do you think Star Citizen's goal of single server is? Like, how far is the current 50-player server limit going to be pushed? As much as they can, mode. The reason why they haven't done it recently, they haven't increased the numbers, isn't because they don't want to. It's because the performance is too bad. So they need to get a lot of other back-end services. They actually have done 100-player servers before in testing, and they talked about it. And it functioned. It didn't just explode. And they used to have 60, 70-player servers, but they had such a huge degradation in terms of performance that they brought it back down to 50. So it's important to remember that servers themselves, the server cap at 50 is more of to do with this is what they can do nice right now while they're working on other stuff in the back end, and then they'll test it out. Every time they come up with a new, like when they came with SOCS, they increased the server numbers to see if that fixed it or not, and it didn't. So they'll continue to do this back and forth while they'll try to push it. CIG, it said in theory, they could have 1,000 people in one server, in theory, based off of what their specs are. The question is how well does that work when it comes to performance and such. So we'll see. My Banu Defender has no toilet. ¿Dónde está el baño? Está en el Esteria. Meshing being successful would make that move. Yeah, for sure the case. The Banu pilot seats recycle. Banu poop out of their heads. That's the secret. Not true. Ortwin, thank you, Dude Fast. Yeah, Orton Frameruth. Orton Frameruth is a very smart man. Please don't sue me. That man is very good, very talented from his repertoire and his reputation. That, you know, from just glancing at things, he knows what he's doing. And every deal from the FOIP systems to the SciTech deals, all of those were negotiated very well on CIG's behalf. I have no doubt that if CIG was to enter in a deal with Amazon, it would be dealt with at the best possible case scenario for CIG without making CIG look like a bunch of dicks, you know. With the new cargo containers, the issue with the cargo containers and performance has less to do with the cargo containers themselves and more to do with instancing and lots of other issues dealing with like physics issues, draw calls, like graphics issues. There's a lot of different factors that play into case with having bad performance. Things like server meshing will help, but iCache will help. Same with just small improvements in performance and like coming towards beta. That kind of stuff will help as well. So I don't doubt that you would have you'll have a prime, like at some point Twitch will have some sort of like prime package deals, Twitch Prime, skins for Star Citizen ships or something like that. I know Rudo too. Yeah. For those of you guys who don't know, Ortwin's visage was the basis for, or was based off of Ortwin's image, which is the current imperator of the UEE. Blanky McBlankface. I don't remember his name. Kelos Costigan. Kelos cares. He's the current. His image is that of Ortwin's. By server meshing, Mahood, so teams of servers will work together across 50 server limit. Yeah. Currently, they may increase the numbers of people per server as well as they start increasing, as they start adding the server meshing. So like one area of space may be a server, just generically, and that may hold 50 people. But because it's in the middle of deep space, that server may also be able to hold 200 people or 1,000 people, 1,000 ships or 1,000 people. We don't know. Once they start adding server meshing, it's going to start dumping off the load from just one server to multiple servers. Some of the things they've talked about is instead of having one server, having each server just be a thread in that CPU of that server. So having 32 servers per server broken up into different grid squares. There's a lot of crazy ideas, and I'm not technically minded in that sense, so I have no clue if that's true or not. This was also months, if not years ago, when they talked about that. Hello there, David Anderson. General Kenobi. How's it going, David? I had no idea what they're talking about. Yeah, iCache is just, you take a coffee cup. You take this G Fuel cup. Sponsor me. You take this G Fuel cup. You go to the top of the mountain. You put top of the mountain on Microtech. I put this down on top of the mountain on Microtech. I fly off, have space adventures for 2 months. I come back 2 months later. That G Fuel cup is still on top of that mountain. That's iCache. Nago. I'm voting for Nago. For Imperator this year. We have a test server much higher than 50, yeah. 2.0 is 60 to 70, I think, yeah. It was unstable, but you could do it. Can you talk about the election, how and if and when the votes, etc.? Later this year, they're doing exposés and jump points, I think, of each of the candidates. I'll be doing a Galactic Historian report on that in the near future. So, reports are so for those of you who've never seen Galactic Historian, I do several different types. I do museum, I do episodes, and then I do reports. Episodes have kind of become the standard, but a report is specifically one where I don't try as hard, and it usually involves something very specific to the lore of the game right now. So a report on the election is more about talking about how the election might impact the current game, or it's very timely, like required by them. I've done stuff on the Outlaw Confederacy and how outlaws will work together. I've also done stuff on, what was the other one I did? Outlaw Confederacy. There's another one. I can't remember which one I did, but same idea. So. Night, Darsh. But yeah, the elections are coming up soon. There's a couple of different options. I think one from each party, and I think there's one, at least one from each party. I think there's two from the Universalists, and then there's the AI specialist who's the independent. Or the expression, yeah. There's a planet in the Chris system, Chris 4. That's an ice planet that's also on fire. Question, do you think they have something... Oh, and Imati just raided. Hello, Imati. Welcome, everyone, from Imati's stream. My name is Paul, Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the Astro Pub. This is Galactic Historian Office Hours, for those of you guys who don't know, which is where we do lore and other Star Citizen topics. It's kind of like a hangout, chill, talk about Star Citizen stream, where we kind of... I take questions from the audience and we kind of talk about it. Mostly focused on lore, but any kind of Star Citizen stuff. How's it going? Well, wait, we get to vote? In theory, yes, Roy. You will be able to get to vote in the Imperator elections coming at the end of the year. Do you think they have something planned for combat logging? Just spend an hour chasing a guy around the whole... Yes, Sneak. I think that the combat logging, the simplest solution is probably the best, which is a timer, a logout timer. Where if they're just going to log in combat, then they will remain in space motionless for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or they can wait in the exit screen for that amount of time. Say no to communism. Hey, Adrian. Adrian, I think there was some issue with when you're to comment about that. What Detox was saying is an English idiom. I know it was said by Stalin at some point, but it's an English idiom. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. It just means that nothing is clean. Anything, especially politically, is going to be messy. There's going to be some lashback. Nothing is perfect. But as long as the point is important or noble, then it's important to chase down that goal. That was the discussion, Adrian. So, Amati, what did you play? What were you doing there earlier? Thank you, Specializations. I'm a little far behind on the chat, so that's why it comes up there. E uses logout timer, DZ uses a logout timer, all that kind of stuff. Emma Tai. There we go. Sorry, Emma Tai. Emma, what were you playing? That was a joke? Okay. I didn't know, because I've already talked with a couple people who are not US, who are from, like, the Balkans or from Eastern Europe, who are like, why are you know, like, on Twitter, you're doing all these other things? And I was just like, I gotta explain, like, gotta understand the context of our society to understand what's going on. So, and I know not everyone gets that kind of thing. What was your Waterloo of Star Citizen? Oh, yeah, you asked that in the Galactic Historian. Idris 4. The Battle of Idris 4. It is the Waterloo. It is the D-Day. It is the Kursk, Stalingrad. You name a turning point in world history in terms of combat. It's Idris 4. The Battle of Idris 4 in the First Tavaran War. Is the UEE a parliamentary? Sort of. It is single chamber of how they have the Congress, which is known as the Senate. The head of the Congress is kind of like a prime minister, who's called the High Secretary. But the High Secretary is still technically under the Imperator. So it is similar to the parliamentary system of, say, the British, of Great Britain, of UK. I always forget which one. I think it's Great Britain, not UK. No? Yeah. Because I think UK represents Scotland and England, and UK is Scotland, England, Wales, and Ireland, if I remember correctly. So it's technically the UK. I'm trying to remember all my terminology for that kind of stuff. I'm sure even people from the Isles use it interchangeably, but... If you have a bed, you wake up in a bed or something. If you have a bed, you will wake up back in your bed, in that bed. So that's the log out. So if you have a ship that you want to log out in and that ship will disappear, essentially safely log out so you don't just have your freelancer hanging out in deep space, you can do that. So the bed system works as a log out way. Whereas if you just log out where you're in your ship, in your seat, your ship will remain there until you log back in, which is still dangerous. Doesn't fail us, yeah. Fully automated luxury space communism. Exactly, Astro Nestro. Yeah, it's very similar to, like, so the Imperator is part king, part president. They're technically the chief executive officer of the military. They're technically head over the advocacy. So they're the chief executive, the chief executive of the judicial system, and they're also the head of the government in terms of, like, they have to sign off on all the laws. But in reality, the head of the legislative system is called the High Secretary, who functions very much like the Prime Minister of England, of the UK. And the head of the advocacy works as kind of like the Supreme Court. The advocacy is a really weird system to me. Maybe it's because I'm an American and our system doesn't work anything like this. The advocacy is both the courts, so like the Supreme Court, and the Department of Justice. So it's both the judges and the law enforcement, all of the law enforcement, which seems like a conflict of interest, but it's also was used as a secret police for a long time. So we're playing some Star Citizen using the last of my Prospector rental to make some money. Nice, Emma. Nice. Drugs are bad, okay? Like an elected emperor. Essentially, it's an elected emperor. Might work better as Idris 4. Locke is the name of the planet in Idris 4, but Idris 4 was the Battle of Idris 4 was like, someone says it's like the Waterloo because it's like a watershed battle that changed the course of all history, or, you know, like of a region. Astro, no problem, man. Utho is fantastic. We have seen some stuff, and your gut feeling doesn't fail us, yeah. You think we'll see the retribution in the PU? No. I have a feeling what happens to retribution, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to be called, people like, you're spoiling Squadron 42. But it's almost decidedly only a Squadron 42 asset. So the advocacy is like Judge Dredd? Yeah, essentially. Advocacy agents are kind of like Spectres in Mass Effect. They have they're basically judge, jury, and executioner, and have the right to do all of those things. And advocacy agents who are in charge of a system, they just don't care. Like, they are usually ex-Marines, top of the class, super specialized, very good at negotiating, very good at combat. They all have their own specialties, but they are very, very good at their job. Scarily good at their job. Advocacy is like the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA had a big baby. And the Supreme Court, the federal court system had a baby. They're very, very weird in American sensibilities. So Inquisitors from 40K. Basically, yeah. Inquisitors from 40K, Spectres in Mass Effect, Marshals in Old West dramas, that kind of thing. They have fully vested to do whatever they want. They're also underfunded, and usually an advocacy agent will be charged for the entire system. So, for instance, the advocacy agent in charge of the Odin system is you meet her in the vertical slice they showed off of Squadron 42 is Agent Trejo. She's the head agent in charge of the Odin system. And to get like that scene that you see at the end of the vertical slice, where you come in to rescue her from the slavers, like you cut her like the cuffs she's in. She immediately steps down, kind of like wipes blood off her face, walks over, pulls out a gun from like a locker, and just like, okay, cool, let's go kill some slavers. And your character's like, hey, Colton, Agent Trejo's requesting that we go kill some slavers, and you know, he's like, it's your op, don't let her go off on the handle. And she's like, cool, show me the way. It's like she just was tortured for hours. You show up and she's like, I'm gonna kill some people now. Like, just absolute badasses, like beyond belief. They will throw themselves into fires to do their jobs. So Advocacy's go-to ship up until recently has been the Avenger Stalker. Do I digress when I request $5 paint scheme on my vehicle? What do you mean digress, Billy? I don't know what you mean. If they're such big baby, why can't they have some of their paint on my ship? What? What? I don't know what's going on. Great Britain, okay. Deputized very easily? Yes. I mean, like, if you saw in Squadron 42, she just, like, in some of the vertical slices, she's just like, cool, you're my deputy now. It's like, you're a member of the UEE Navy, and she's just like, cool, you're under my charge, because I technically outrank you. I don't know what you're talking about, Billy. I have no idea what you just said, dude. I don't get your train of thought. So if there's such a big baby, why can't I have some of their paint on my ship? I don't know what you're talking about. Who's the big baby? Oh, he's speaking to you. He's talking in YouTube and you're talking on Twitch. So I'm just trying to figure out the. Oh, okay. The Drumtown Wars series was pretty good. What's the next docu-lore project you're working on? Big docu-lore project? I don't know. It really depends. I might tackle the First Tavaran War if we get some more information about it, but we'll see. Had a big, nasty baby. Yeah. And also, if you have the Avenger Renegade, you actually no longer have the Advocacy skins on there. They've taken off the Advocacy logos. About these streams? Yeah. I don't know what's going on. But the Razer EX was made for them. Regatta, also the M50. So the Advocacy is slowly working out of the Avenger, and they'll be replacing the Avenger with the M50s and the Razer EXs. So Razers and M50s are the go-to Advocacy ships in the future. They don't have the abilities to transport targets, so they can't arrest anybody, but they make up for it for their speed, being able to chase down targets. To mean 5 moves ahead. They're by underling, yeah. Using Lamborghinis? Kind of, yeah, Sangro, but that's kind of the point. They use modified M50s, though. So it could be that the CIG will release a M50, a Bounty Hunter M50 version. Just slap a cargo pod of a person to the outside of your ship. Just be like, cool, throw you in there on top of the engine. Hopefully the engine doesn't explode. So they made 300 million overall, but this they're on track to make something like 60 million this year, which would be double the amount, almost double the amount of the highest year they've ever had. They're at the funding levels of like August or September of last year, and last year was the biggest year that they've ever had, so like 2 or 3 months ahead. Nighthawking switched the subscription there, my man. 18 months in a row, and Ruckus for that 42 months. Thank you so much. Thank you guys all for the follows. Let's give some more beers out there. For those guys who don't know what beers are, on Twitch chat. In Twitch chat, beers are used for our bot. That bot has points. Those points are for giveaways that we do when we stream live on Twitch on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We do giveaways every so often. When we reach our goal for the day, or if we just on Fridays we give away stuff live. But normally we just give away stuff every month on Gleam. This month we're giving away a Prospector, June. Unfortunately, because YouTube is being weird, I'm going to have to go June. Copy that and paste it into here. That's the only thing I can do. I cannot put it in the comments or anything like that, because YouTube's been doing strikes for people who do Gleam giveaways or do any kind of Gleam links in their descriptions or comments or anything like that, because it's spam. It's not meant as a anything but to kind of merge all my communities together from Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, to merge them together. But Twitch, they call it manipulation, which doesn't make any sense to me, but or YouTube does. So anyways, I'll be right back, guys. Yeah, they're like James Bond. Yeah. I don't think the funding model leaves them immune to some criticism, though. We both know they don't exactly what their partnerships mean, so it could go either way. It's cool, Billy. Don't worry about it, dude. I'm also behind on a lot of the chat, so I don't know what's going on. How does ArcCorp get all its food? Shipped in, my dude. It sounds weird, but shipped in. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even have... It has an ocean. That's fine, man. You don't have to enter it either, Adrian. How would I convince someone to play this game? I wouldn't convince them to play the game. If you want someone to play the to try the game out, have them try the game out. But this game is not in a situation where your average player is going to want to play it. There's not even a lot of other things you can do in terms of like as a group yet. The worst thing, I think the worst thing I've ever done is try to get people who are is try to get people interested in Star Citizen before it's ready for them to be interested in it. Every person's going to have a time where it's at a stage upon which those people will be interested in playing the game. You really have to judge based off of those people. There's plenty of people who will come into the game and be like, oh, this game is great. It's buggy, but I can see where it's going and I enjoy playing it. I'm crazy. I enjoy games like this, which are broken and early access, because I can see the glimpses of where it's going. And unlike other developers that I've had, the pleasure of working with who are ambitious, but just don't quite have the money or the time or the resources or the drive to try to take that idea and turn it into something that's really, really cool. CIG has the time and the money, and they don't care about a lot of the criticism. They'll just push forward no matter what. So for me, games like Star Citizen are perfect because I can see it develop as I play it. But not everyone's like that. I think that's the mistake that most Star Citizen fans make when they try to get their friends into it, is that we see where the game's going, and we'll take a look at the game now versus what it was a year ago and go, oh, we can see all the advancements. It's so much better. What a person who plays normal games and kind of come to play Star Citizen sees is low frame rates, buggy interface, not really, like, the UI is kind of wonky, the controls are kind of clunky, the ships are are not intuitive, they're hard to control. Once you figure all that out, now you have to go move boxes around for money. Oh, I can go fight, but I'm going to die instantly because I don't have enough stuff. So I have to go move boxes until I have enough money. Then I'm going to go kill 14 people, and I get half the money that I would get for moving boxes. That's what people see. For me, moving boxes is fun because of a lot of different other factors. I can run into other players. I have to get in shot. I get a wanted level. All those sorts of things. For me, being a smuggler is my regular profession. For someone who's a combat pilot, might find it fun because they get into combat fights all the time. They can make some money, but it's mostly about the combat. And most combat pilots aren't having fun, which is why they're trying to fix the combat. Miners have fun because of the monotony of mining, but it's also very specific. So it really depends on your friends and what kind of games they play. So the suggestion I would say is don't try to convince people to play the game. It's a free flight coming out. If they're interested in it, you show them some videos of it, and if they're interested in more, you just go, there's a free flight this time. Note that the free flights are usually really stress testy, but you can try it out for yourself. Or you can say, hey, Here's my game. Here, try it on my rig when you come over. Try it out for a few minutes. That's the best you can do. Otherwise, you got to let them kind of choose what they want. Yeah, you only just played 3 months ago, yeah. Have them watch a player created content on YouTube and Twitch. That's a good way of doing it too. To show people, learning curve is incredibly hard for new people coming from a person who has a spare account for friends to try the game. Yeah, it's incredibly high. Like, people talk about how it's super easy, but it really isn't. There's a lot of learning curve into understanding how to control ships. And I'm not very good at it, and I've been playing this game for 8 years. Malachor, when it comes to pay to win issues, you're never, that same thing goes. You're never going to escape those things. The best thing you can say is with a $45 ship, you can get almost every single game every single ship in the game. That's why I do 0 to hero. I spent $45 in that account. I have a Cutlass and an Aurora and an Avenger. Spent not a dime over $45. But I have probably about $200 worth of ships from in-game. So, like, of IRL cash. Just rearranging my stick back and forth. That sounded bad. My T60000M. But yeah, I mean, like the other things about pay to win is that everyone's definition is different for pay to win. My definition of pay to win is, can it give you an undue advantage that is not able to be gotten in game? And if the answer is yes, then it's pay to win. For me, Star Citizen isn't pay to win because buying an Idris doesn't give you an advantage over someone who buys an Aurora. Because that person who buys an Idris now needs a crew to run that Idris. It's a powerful ship. You can do a lot of damage. But you need other people. Just buying a Super Hornet doesn't make you an invincible fighter. Someone with an Aurora and some experience and some slight upgrades can still beat a Super Hornet. It makes the game a little easier, but it doesn't make you invulnerable. And all the stuff in game can all like upgrades and ships can be purchased in game as well with in-game cash. So Star Citizen's essentially just jumping ahead of a lot of MMOs, where at day one of a typical MMO, everyone's on even playing field. But if I decide to jump into an MMO 3 months after the game's released, there's going to be people at max level with the best raid gear. Those people will be better than me. I won't be able to fight them in any kind of PvP, in any kind of PvP situations in an MMO. That doesn't necessarily mean that they've paid to win. They've played, and they've got that. It's unfair, but that's just the nature of MMOs. So our Citizen's just doing the same thing. If someone has a fully crewed Idris day one with all the fixins and is able to find missions to keep that thing running, they've done the work. That's still work more than just money. It's money and work. That doesn't mean, what if a person who buys the game on day one and then works their way up to an Idris 3 months later? What happens to the person who comes in 3 months later? That person has an Idris. Is that fair to that person who has it? Yeah, he earned it in game, but what's the difference between the guy who earned it in game and the guy who purchased it? You're still not going to be good at it just because you bought it with real money. You still have to learn how to use it. As we already said, the learning curve is pretty high. They're going to try to work that down, but it's never going to be to a point where buying an Idris is an I win button in combat or in anything else. So that's me. But other people say if you can purchase something, period, then it's pay to win. If you can purchase something that gives you any kind of slight advantage, it's pay to win. And for those people, yeah, Star Citizen's pay to win. The problem is that, like beta and alpha, there's no defined, no one has a perfectly defined version of pay to win. They don't have a perfect definition of pay to win. It's up to the individual people. So if you're worried about someone asking if Star Citizen's pay to win, ask them, what's your definition of pay to win? That's all you have to do. What is pay to win to you? If this is pay to win, then yeah, it's pay to win. If it's you can buy to get an advantage in game over other players, then you go, well, what kind of advantages? You have to kind of go through down that rabbit hole a little bit. It's one of the downsides of the Star Citizen funding model. It works, but it leaves that criticism open. Gear is important, but gear is not the be-all, end-all. It's one part of a larger spectrum of Star Citizen. You need gear, you need upgrades, and you need skill. Those three things are going to be very important in Star Citizen. They already are. A fully geared out, a fully upgraded Aurora, low gear, high upgrades, high skill pilot will beat a Super Hornet in combat, 1-to-1 head-to-head combat, guaranteed. A brand new Super Hornet with no upgrades and a brand new player, that Aurora will decimate that Super Hornet. Will make it look like a fool. I've seen it happen. It's entirely possible for it to happen. Just because a Super Hornet is a $180 ship and the Aurora is $45 doesn't mean it won't happen like that. So that's the key. But for real on those oceans, are spaceships going to float? Can we play Sea of Thieves Citizen? I don't know. I really don't know. Ramming speed. I'll probably finish up here shortly. Yeah, Star Citizen is Schrodinger's pay to win. What do you think a Car2 all buff is? What do you think to the Car2 all buff having better maneuverability and size 4 weapon slots that CIG announced on Spectrum? They announced it on Spectrum? Thank God. Good idea. Car2 all was a shittily designed ship for what Star Citizen's become. It's now beastly. Cool. I'm considered a good pilot by a lot of my peers. I used to bullseye womp rats with my Dragonfly back home. Yeah. Will Aurora beat an Idris, though? Hell no, an Aurora won't beat an Idris. But an Idris has got to be crewed to kill an Aurora. That Idris is going to have the turning radius of a boat. And Aurora can't kill an Idris, but an Idris alone can't kill an Aurora. That's what I mean by advantage. Just an Idris alone is great. You still need to crew that shit. But does it? Ramming speed. But that's the thing, is an Idris is, we've already seen the speed of an Idris. Likely it's going to be slower than an Aurora, just because it's an Idris, it's a frigate versus a fighter. Same kind of concept. It's also going to have not the best maneuverability in Idris's, because it's a capital ship. So a decent Aurora pilot can just maneuver around it and get away. Versus a $90 ship? Yeah. And you can go skinny dipping on the tropical beach areas in Alien Worlds. There we go. The 600i and then jump be able to float. I think there was a theory that they would be able to at some point. I don't know if that's true or not, though. You think the new Glaive model will be? It's Bloodguard. Have you seen the Squadron 42 visual teaser from the end of last year? That is the upgrade. Watch the Squadron 42 visual teaser, and it has the new models for the Glaive and the Scythe in that. You can see them. They look more like the Vanduul blade than they do what they currently look like. And so they've likely buffed out a lot of those issues as well. I think you got a situation where with an Aurora and Idris or any kind of capital ship, the Aurora doesn't have enough firepower to breach the shields of a capital ship, but that capital ship solo is going to have absolutely no way of taking on an Aurora. And again, it's not a fight if the Aurora can just fly away. It's just going to be a big roadblock that you just... It's like a pilotable asteroid is all that an Idris will be at that point. It can't do anything but try to get in your way. That would be great. Like 50 Auroras versus an Idris. Test squadron, best squadron. That's what we'd do. Yeah, but Stick, we're talking about a solo Idris, like a solo crew. Like there's only one person running that Idris, which is technically possible, but you wouldn't be able to run anything else. Any word on when you can open a bar on your ship? None yet. We'll see though. Any tropical beach in any alien world with human-controlled space? Yes. That's where pay to win won't really matter. Yeah, like the more expensive the ship, the larger the crew requirement is going to be. And with the javelins, for instance, they don't come with weapons. You have to buy individual weapons for those javelins and components, which are going to be expensive. So you have to be able to buy the components, the weapons, and then hire the crew. So like when you pull out a capital ship, you're talking about a serious investment. And they've talked about this before. It's like the cost of just pulling your Idris out of the hangar for docking fees, refuel cost, maintenance cost is going to be astronomical. The only reason you pull out an Idris is because it's got a purpose. A capital ship combat situation. Or it's a mobile base of some kind with large crew members going off and doing missions and coming back with more money. A bebop situation, you know, if you will. Something like that would be the only reason why you'd have an Idris out constantly. You need to have multiple people. Apparently the Jav will come with weapons. I don't know if that's... I'd have to look that up because they originally said they would be sold without any military-grade hardware. I don't think people realize just how much running around you have to do in a ship that size. I've played Space Engineers. I know that kind of thing. What planet would the AstroClub retire set up shop at? It depends. If I can set up a base, I probably will, but I have to see. Not green because that's where Ferrosalt is. Maybe Terra. Likely Magnus would be my choice, which is kind of that gray area between legal and illegal. There's a lot of illegal actions that go on there, but it's still technically a UE space. Yeah, if you play Space Engineers with larger ships, knowing you have to run across the ship to like activate and deactivate like your thruster or your power plants and all that kind of stuff can be kind of complicated. That's what was looking pretty decent here. We'll have weapons? Okay. But a big cannon will be smaller than the military version or something like that. So yeah, it just won't be military grade. Travel through Banu space will require dealing with the relevant Suli, yeah, no matter where you are. That's true. Did CIG ever explain how they were planning on to do races? Grimhex seems ripe for randomly generating a new track each time, but I don't know if they will ever said how they will introduce it. They've talked about the idea of having virtual checkpoints, like AR checkpoints where you can fly through. But it's been a while since they had that out there. Likely what I think will happen is you will... This is my theory, and this may be completely wrong, is you'll enter a race, you'll be given access to go to a hangar which is shielded from the outside. So you get into your ship, you take off in your ship, you fly out of the hangar into the starting area with all the other ships. And if you do anything hostile, or it's like an armistice zone, and if you run into anybody or anything else like that, you're disqualified, and it's just, you're done for. Or you get into your ship and your ship is automatically taken to the starting point and you're not allowed to move until the race starts. And then when the race starts, one of the like shielded areas will drop. You fly off into that shielded area, you go through the AR checkpoints, moving around, and when you come back to the start again, they'll drop the exit, or the like finish line shield, and you go through the finish line, and so on and so forth. Something I imagine that would what I'd imagine doing, trying to limit the trolling as much as possible, and having the AR checkpoints just be randomly generated. Exactly, yeah. If the bar got big enough, would you consider running it on a Kraken privateer with a crew? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm gonna start actually making money off of the bar when both alcohol is in game and transactions are in game. I'm gonna charge you more money than the bars would, but company's infinitely better. Hey, Astra, how you doing, buddy? In 2004. In theory, they'll be in game next patch. We'll see. I'm doing all right. No, you are coming in towards the end. Let me check Galactic Historian real quickly for any kind of questions. No questions on the Patreon. Let me do one more refresh. Am I ready for 310? Yes, I am. Very ready for 310. People always talk about the landing pad on the Kraken, but they forget about the landing pads underneath. Yeah, there are repair bays underneath it, like that are basically hangars, smaller hangars, but they're only designed for like buccaneers. They're not designed for like cutlasses. Call it the chat bar. The star bar. I mean, don't rush to 310. 3.9 was a dumpster fire because they rushed and had a bunch of other issues. 3.10 could be equally a dumpster fire. We don't know yet. It hasn't been released yet. Yes, it's an ETF. No, I can't talk about it because I'm in Advocacy. But, you know, the reality is that the game that releases in Advocacy is not the same that goes into PTU in terms of performance and a lot of other issues like that. So I can't even tell you what the game's going to look like when 3.10 hits PTU. And 3.9 was great in PTU. It was great in Wave 2 PTU. It was great in Wave 3 PTU. It released and it became a dumpster fire. So PTU performance and gameplay is not at all significant in terms of the actual release of live. So we'll see. They showed cutlasses in them in a trailer. Did they? I thought they were on top. There may be some areas that are large enough to fit into cutlass. I don't think 3.9 was that bad, but I remember 2.0. I remember 3.1. I remember 3.5, where they were garbage. 3.9 is not that bad. 3.9 had some issues, and 3.9.1 fixed some of those issues, and there's still some problems. I think the biggest issue that people have is the 30Ks. And unfortunately, 30Ks will remain a thing until iCache is implemented. I think it was better than 3.5. 3.9 is better than 3.5, worse than 3.7, better or on par as with 3.8. I think people had more of a negative experience because people got used to trading in previous patches, and then the 30Ks got really bad. Theaters of War needs to take some time, guys. It needs time. From what I've heard and from what I've seen, I haven't played it myself, so it just needs time. It needs better back-end performance boosts and other things like that. Like, I really hope it doesn't come out until the end of the year. Like, that's me saying, don't come out in summer. Release it into like a PTU beta so people can try it. But then to get some wider feedback, but don't release it till the end of the year. It's a fat reward. Did more people playing 3.9 due to the world events lead to the higher stress leading to more 30K events? Possibly, Sand. Possibly. Plus the free flight event, plus the events, the Invictus Flight Week events. All of those things probably added to some of the issues of 3.9 and 3.9.1. Yeah, 2.0 was where we literally were crash counters, how many times we crashed, and timers for how long we could stay on the server before it crashed. 2.0 was horrible. And this is going to be a controversial take, but 3.0 was better than 2.6.3. 2.6.3 was decent for combat, but not much else. The game we have today is leaps and bounds better than we had in 2.6.3. And each patch is better than the last patch. However, in terms of playability and enjoyability, 3.7 was the best patch we've ever had. 3.9, I think, is better in terms of gameplay, but in terms of enjoyable experience, 3.7 was fantastic. Still, with 3.9, we have LTP, we have prison system, which I think is a good system. We have good economy balance. We have just new places to go. You know, all these things are good things, but specifically the economy balance and the for like missions and such, new missions. And the LTP are huge deals when it comes to, and I think LTP came in 3.8, but the fact that it's still here in 3.9 and it hasn't been wiped yet is big. No, they have 3.10 will not have creatures. It's not on the roadmap. They didn't say they'll have creatures. They said they're working on prototyping creatures in terms of designing them and putting them together now. From the sounds of things, they were originally going to do space whales, and they're originally going to do things like the blind oni crab, the sneeze. Sorry. The Metroid-like looking guys that you saw in one of the Star Citizen presentations, the like floating jellyfish. They're going to go with those kind of creatures, and they decided they're going to go with more domestic creatures like the space cow and the space whale, and then the Kazi grazer, and then the space whale. And now they're saying, you know what? Let's go with predator creatures. Let's just start with predator creatures. So that's why they're doing the pyro crab and the microtech bear. The polar bear or whatever they're calling it. which makes sense because players can hunt those. Needs creature, yeah. Star Citizen Classic 2.0. Oh, God. I wouldn't doubt it, Mooncat, that the first surge in Invictus caused Amazon servers to crash. Free flight event. You know, maybe 1 million people all trying to scramble onto the servers at once. Any new news on Squadron Beta? Nope. Nothing yet. That's what they said, but it seems like, according to the last update, that they're switching gears to more do predators rather than doing the prey or just kind of filler animals. And I can understand that because the AI logic for a predator animal is probably not all that different from the AI logic for a predator or for like an aggressive enemy AI. Essentially, walk around this area. If a player comes close, attack them. That's all you gotta do. So just have them patrolling an area and then attacking a player when they get too close. That's a lot simpler than, well, grazing I think would be simpler, but something like that, they already have that in game with like FPS AI. They're more fun to kill. Thank you for that subscription for 2 months there, Metallical. What are your thoughts about how important the flight model is success for this game? This is going to sound controversial. The flight model needs to be easy to learn with a high skill ceiling, but easy to learn and accessible. Players who are demanding sim will destroy the game. They will absolutely ruin the game and any future of it. The game needs to be able for a console pleb to pick up a controller and play the game and have fun. Not necessarily be the best pilot in the universe, but have fun. This needs to be accessible. If it's not accessible, no one will play it. The reason why Elite Dangerous had a lot of people playing it, and No Man's Sky have a lot of people playing it, is because they're simple and easy to learn. The key that Star Citizen is trying to differentiate itself is not just simplicity, but high complexity with experience. Something should be easy to learn, difficult to master. You will hear them say that over and over and over again in their design language. They want easy to learn, hard to master, which is accessible with a high skill ceiling. Essentially, you can pick it up and learn it, but the level of detail you can go into everything you're creating is so high that you'll have players who specialize in tackling specific types of ships. So people who are like, I am a cap ship tackler. So my job is to get into my ship, which is fully kitted out, designed to take on other capital ships. They take on capital ships as a solo fighter or a bomber, something like that. Or support craft or interceptors or long-range escorts. That kind of complexity in terms of loadouts, but also in terms of gameplay. Someone who's doing long-range escorting for cargo vessels is going to have a different mentality and different gameplay style than someone who is a bounty hunter searching out and trying to take people down. They have different types of ways they play the game. That is the key, and that's the key to success for Star Citizen. So yes, it's very important that they nail down the flight model, but the flight model itself has to be easy. Hey, Michael, how you doing, buddy? We'll see, Metallical. I think what a lot of people have been saying about the flight model for the next patch is actually pretty good. 263 was fairly good. It was fairly diverse in terms of how flight moves. You also got to remember that there's a lot of a lot of combat in Star Citizen, we focus on dogfighting, but combat in Star Citizen is not dogfighting. It's not a dogfighting simulator. You also have larger, slower gunships. You have larger capital ships. All of these ships also have to have similar feels, or they have to feel good in terms of combat, while also being able to deal with fighters. So the fact that they've been working on turret gameplay to improve turret gameplay means that you're going to have larger capital ships or larger ships which will be dangerous for fighters. So fighters will no longer reign supreme, which means that circle strafing won't help a dogfighter. If a hammerhead is nearby, it'll just wreck your face because you won't be able to outrun it or outmaneuver it. That kind of thing. So. Do I think the original backers of this game were backing a game that would have a simplistic flight model? No, but I think the original backers of the game were backing a game they want to have fun and successful later down the line. I think a lot of the original backers of this game thought they were buying DCS in space, which I think was a mistake on CIG's part to lead them on. But it was never going to be that. If you look at like old Wing Commander, Freelancer, Privateer games, that's what Chris Roberts was trying to go for, but slightly more advanced than they had that back then. It just, CIG didn't do a good job of explaining that. It was also before they had $300 million. Yeah, Rogue System is DCS in space, and it's not fun. It's not necessarily not fun. I'm sure there are people who enjoy that kind of stuff, but it's not as popular. And the problem is that at this point, CIG needs to make a game that is popular enough to attract people to play it and continue playing it to keep the servers open. But it's the best damn space sim. The problem is that a space sim, as defined by the 90s eras of space sims, is not a space simulator. It's not Kerbal Space Program. It's not DCS in space. It's X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. It's Wing Commander. It's Elite, which were never one-to-one simulations. Even Elite Dangerous isn't a full simulation of space. They do take some liberties and kind of break some of the physics around this stuff. That being said, Star Citizen is fairly complex in terms of its physics calculations and how everything works. The controls are fairly responsive. It's just not going to be one-to-one prime your fusion engines and wait 15 minutes for the power to turn back on and maneuver on tea kettle mode out of orbit, out of station. Achieve orbit. that kind of detail is not going to be in Star Citizen because the idea is to have fun. And the balance of fun versus simulation is in there. You need to have easy access to the game. You need to have a lot of automation. And CIG even talked about that early on in the backing process, was automation is the players can just automate their ships. Remember there was a meme about somebody hopping into their Hornet and being like, okay, I got to turn the engines on, or I got to turn the power plant on, and the engine's on. And then someone walked up and said, ship on, and hopped into their ship and flew away. And the person who was still turning on their ship said, you're breaking my immersion, as like a comic, as a joke. That was back in like 2013. We even were talking about that. CIG has always had this idea of how they're going to try to streamline it to make it easier for players to get involved into it, but also have a lot of nuance for allow players to kind of spec out the way they need to. Think about it as the way of you can fly decoupled or coupled mode. Coupled mode is simple. People can easily figure out how to fly a coupled mode, but you're not going to be as good of a dogfighter if you're flying coupled versus decoupled. Decoupled gives you a lot more finer controls. Turning off G-safe allows you to take tighter turns, gives you that slight edge in terms of combat. That's the idea that CIG is going for. Something that is easy to automate for most players to kind of just play the game, versus people who want to take it seriously and really dig into and get into the deep mechanics. You're just never going to get DCS in space. What will they do with oceans? I'm sure they will, but Solotherm, but I don't think that's a they'll have underwater stuff and kind of thing, but not yet. All right, guys, we are way over time. So this is pretty long, but I've had a lot of fun in talking with you guys. So thank you guys for hanging out with us here at the Astropub. If you guys did enjoy this, hit the follow button or subscribe if you're on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. We're not going to be playing Star Citizen. We will be starting to play Star Citizen, and then we'll be moving over to another game that just released that everybody else is playing. A hard space. Oh gosh, it's called Salvage or something like that. Hard space is the game. Shipbreaker, hard space Shipbreaker. We'll be taking a look at that on Wednesday. Wednesdays are going to start to be where I take a look at other space games or like do other games other than Star Citizen, just so that we can play around and do some of the stuff. I might start off doing Star Citizen, do the Richard method where I just kind of start off with doing a little bit of Star Citizen and then work my way into hard space, that kind of stuff. The Shipbreaker game. So do a whole stream of it, Paul. Just forget Star Citizen tomorrow. We could try it. Sorry, Doctor. Thanks for coming in. Sorry, Napkin. All right, guys. Like I said every time, hope to see you guys again soon. But if I don't, hope to see you someday in the black. Later, guys.